So it better be good.
Shall we pray? Heavenly Father, thank you for bringing us together this day. We thank you for all the visitors, Lord, that we have here with us today too, Lord, and we ask you to bless each and every one of them. And Lord, we too ask you too, Lord, to bless this club. This club, Lord, has been a beacon in the community, Lord, that does things to help people. Lord, we want to be that service above self that we ask you, Lord, to let us be guided to do. Thank you, Lord, for the food that we have today, Lord. Let it be blessed. And these things we ask in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Please join me in the pledge and honor in the United States of America flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Please join me in the four-way test of the things we think, say, and do. First,
Is the truth.
second,
Is fair to all concerned.
third,
Will it build goodwill and better friendships.
fourth.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned.
All right, you notice that the microphone's not on. Here we go. It's coming and going. I don't need it anyway. Okay, you notice there's no blue book on your table today because we're going to do a song that's not in your hymnal, but I bet most of you in your Rotarian song book.
Oh, that's not a good speaker.
If you know what joining, how about that?
Something's happening.
Cutting in and out.
Anyway, you might know this song anyway. It goes like this.
Some glad morning when the sun is o'er, I'll away to land and one not celestial shore. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Just a few more days and then I'll fly away to a land where doors shall never end. I'll fly away. I'll fly away, oh glory. I'll fly away in the morning when I die. Hallelujah, by and by, I'll fly away. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, Lord, I want to be in that number when the saints go marching. One more time. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, when the saints go marching in. Oh, Lord, I want to be in that number when the saints go marching in.
Again, I'm going to reiterate, I think that should be a weekly occurrence. And also, thank you, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou, because that's how I know that song.
Okay, who's happy to be here today?
We got some other stuff.
Oh, you gotta do something first? Okay.
We got a couple of little things.
Okay.
I have one visiting Rotarian in here right now, but I actually know that we have at least two. So if I'm missing anybody, please let me know. But we have Jim Satterwhite. Where is he? Right. Where there he is with the Daybreak. Daybreak. And we have one other special Rotarian in the house today. We have our Assistant District Governor, Karen Maxwell, who is part of the any other Rotarians that guests that I'm missing? Okay, so now let's go down the guest list. I have first David Ellis. Would you please tell us who you have today?
Well, I've got my good friend Jim Satterwhite with me. He just didn't want to get. Tom Davis is here somewhere. There he is. And I got my lovely wife Sheila here.
After today, Sheila will no longer be a visitor. She's getting an application. Okay, Roxanne Turner.
I've got
She does the whole table.
my visitor say Scott Kernard. He's an attorney here in Hunt County,
Hey Scott.
and his wife Kendall.
And who will also not be a visitor for much
He will
longer.
not.
All right, Scott's actually filled out his membership.
Yes.
We're waiting to get voted in.
Forget about Scott, we want to know if Kendall.
Kyla Smith is our friend from down from Lake Tawakoni.
Go ahead.
Yay!
And then this is my daughter, Sarah Turner.
Hello.
She came all the way from Tyler, Texas to be with us today.
Wow.
Yay, thank you.
And she's a Bowles graduate.
There you go. John Clark has a visitor today.
My favorite wife, Karen.
Your favorite wife, Karen. It's my favorite wife of yours as well, so thank you for bringing Karen. CJ has a guest.
I got Holly Wilson here, the queen of the lazy river. Not only did she come to visit, but she brought us a donation for the Chili Fest. That's right.
We are Holly. Okay, David Weiland, you have a guest today.
I do. I've got my good friend, Judge Bobby Stovall with me today. And I will add, he's a former Rotarian.
Some semantics going around over there. Okay, Tammy Schaefer has a visitor today.
Yes, ma'am, I have two. Yes, ma'am. I have Lane Croxton with our county attorney, tax assessor. My tongue is twisted, I'm sorry. She's a dear friend of mine, and also Pastor Larry Oliver is my dear friend, my buddy. And we're all here happy to be together today, and I hope to become Rotarians as well.
Yes, thank you. Sandra Bell has a guest today. She has to stand up.
And she will take pictures and autographs afterward. This is my office manager in the district attorney's office and my new bestie because my other one stood me up. Rudy Sandlin.
All right.
Let's see. I am next, and I have 3 guests today. I have Bridget Floyd and Stacy Bratner, and they're from At Home Real Estate. Is that correct? At Home. Texas. Yes. And how I met Bridget is because she is also a chamber ambassador. So that's great. And then of course we have Pamela Vickers, Edward Jones. She is also going to be becoming a Rotarian today and taking over for somebody who can't make it, so she's stepped in and she's already signed up for Cozumel next year, by the way.
Wow.
Okay, Kami Williams, she has you want to turn the camera around on yourself? She has a visitor today.
This is Amanda Henderson. She and I have known each other for years and years, so good friends.
Yay! Welcome to all of the guests. I hope that all of you. Oh wait, we have another one. We have another one.
I have one. Oh, I'm right here. Hi. I have a guest. I brought with me Rosa Fleming from our office. Once we heard what the topic was, I had to bring another CPA, so we'll check that.
Okay, anybody else that we missed? Okay. I would like to very much welcome and all of the guests today, and thank you so much for being here and joining us on this amazing venture today. And why don't you go ahead and take it away and do Happy Bucks and Deck of Destiny.
Okay, who is happy to be here today and has to proclaim that? Okay, what you got, Debbie?
Okay. The first one is for all you guests, because the Rotarian member might be afraid to ask you today, but if you do own a business and you would like to contribute to our Chili Fest and silent auction, we would be glad to take a gift. You can see the Rotarian that sent you today, or you can contact me. I am heading up the auction committee. Second $1 is because those of you that see we have items coming in for the auction. Katie got a great list from the chamber. Katie got a bunch of stuff too already. But if you do not have something, and as you new members, you didn't get on the list, I apologize. This is only my second year to do this, but we would like you to come see us afterwards. We got a list from the chamber that people are not on our list. We're going to give you blank sheets. We're going to write their name on it. All we ask you to do is contact them to see if you can get a gift. Remember, we need those turned in no later than I think the excuse me. Okay, we will be setting up on the 26th. I'm sorry, the volunteer, Liz is very sorry, the volunteer sheet did not get back here today. So y'all remember, we do a lot around the Chili Fest on the week of that week. So the 26th and then the 27th, we will be setting up in here. So the last day to turn in your items is probably going to be Monday or Tuesday at the latest. We would like to really see them that Wednesday prior to, which would be the 19th. So y'all get to work, get your items in. If you have any questions, y'all can contact me.
And let me go ahead and just interject right there, because some of the items that we've already received, they are from previous donors, like IFI donated a whole box of hex bugs, but we've also gotten some new stuff like from Jesse's Girl Boutique. I just went in and asked, and she put together a whole bunch of little items for us. There's several of them that Shenanigans donated today, and so there's several people that just, if you happen to be in doing business with them anyway, ask them. The worst they can say is no, but I've gotten a lot of really great things just by asking people in some of the other, when I was at the chamber board meeting yesterday, just asking some of those folks. So just ask while you're out and about.
Yes, she's got some extra blank ones. I run into one this week, and which I'm going to just handwrite in and drop it off at their business, and she's got several of those. Liz, what do you got?
And as Debbie said, the volunteer sheet didn't get back today. Someone has it, but I'll make sure it comes. But we need a lot of volunteers for the 26th and 27th. The 26th is L3. We need 10 people to show up there all day. It's from 10 o'clock to 1 o'clock. And there's a lot of things we need to do for that. But the day of Rotary, the Chili Fest, we need like setup and volunteers, so I'll have a list and make sure your name gets on several pages. And a lot of baking. Well, everybody usually bakes something to bring up here, so that's going to be a lot of help. So make sure that if you don't see the list, make sure you contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Liz. Tracy?
Yeah, I've got two. One, as of Friday is my last day with the dealerships. From Monday, I'll be just doing executive director for Keep Greenville Beautiful, and also going in as director. I've been a sleeping partner in the business for the last year, but as an active director with my daughter's business, Britex Bubbles, and looking to expand that and take that in a further new direction. And that, so I'm really excited about that. And the second one is, don't forget, Hunt County Kids, the disco on the 22nd of February. All proceeds will go to that. Get your tickets while they're still available. You can get them at Greenville Floral and Gifts.
Thank you. Troy?
Just a courtesy announcement, because people keep asking me. The grandbaby is not here yet. We were on high alert this past weekend, but everything's okay. So we're still targeting the 17th, but as big as that kid is, it's going to be early.
Congratulations. Bob?
Gloria's operation went well, and she's out. She only stayed one night in the hospital, and she's out. And actually, she came to work for a little while yesterday, so she's doing fine. And I'll have her back at work Monday full time.
Okay. Moving on to the middle.
I think for her,
Middle
not
section. Bobby?
I'm happy you saw the paper this morning. We finally got DPS after almost a year to take the first step towards getting a driver's license off.
Oh, I'm just happy to be here. Oh, okay. All right. Larry, are you happy to be here?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here, but I'm really happy for Bob, so he can be home now so he can take care of Gloria when she needs help.
Jimmy?
I'm happy to be here, my friends. Oh, I'm happy to be here, friends and neighbors, because I want to tell you, we've got a new radio station in town. Yes, it's friendlyradio.com, and it Bluetooth to your car and anything else you have from Texas Legends and Outlaws.
Rotary Club may or may not have been on that song.
May I speak? All right. So I don't know if I'm happy or not, but I'm helping out our president here. So if y'all do not have your tickets for the Chili Fest to sell, I think I've given out most of them. I don't think I got Liz yet. But if you don't have tickets, let me know or raise your hand so I can write you down and get you something. Okay? All right? And Liz, you don't have tickets yet, do you?
No, I need those.
Okay. If anybody else, look me up.
Tell them the rules. Everybody gets 25.
Okay, the rules are, I don't know if I know the rules, but 20 tickets, $7 each. I think you're obligated for 10.
25 tickets in the bag, you're obligated for 10.
Oh, there's 25?
Correct.
Okay, 25 in the bag. You're obligated for 10. Sell as many as you can. $7 each, or 10 per 100. Right? That math works? That works. Okay, good.
Wait, let me interject there again. We have written down the numbers of the tickets that are in your baggie. So if you would bring your baggie back with, if there's any remaining tickets after your 10, put your money in there, bring the baggie back as a whole so that we can track it a little bit easier this year, please.
All right, this is the happy table right here. They've already contributed. Okay, who's happy to be here?
I am happy to be here, mainly because I see a lot of my friends and family, what I call family, extended family, and I am so happy that we get to spend the chance to have a nice little luncheon and just really fellowship together. And I'm looking forward to more days, and I thank God for us all.
Yes. Yeah, sit over here, everybody good? Last call. Oh, I didn't see you, Roxanne.
I'm just happy to be here, and I'm happy that my daughter came to see me.
Welcome. Anybody else? We're moving on to the deck of destiny, and we got some big bucks to give away today. So, what we're gonna do. Now, I know Judge Stonewall.
You want to explain to our guests what the deck?
Okay, what this is that I've got in my bucket, there's probably about 15 cards left. And all these people bought all these tickets today. And if they can draw out the ace of spades, we're going to give half of that money to them, which is about $1,000. So Judge Stonewall's going to pick a number, and so look at your tickets.
Do I get half?
Only if you donate it back to who we're giving it to.
All right, say it out loud.
The last three numbers, 622.
She's gonna pull that ace for sure now.
Way to go, Bobby. So
Watch this. I bet you.
David Tickle, I had 621.
And I told you you shouldn't let me have them tickets.
I have verified that that ace of spades is still in this deck, which is, I don't know, 15, 18 cards left.
She's gonna get it this time. Watch.
Go, Debbie.
Just feel it. Just feel it.
Feel it.
Just me.
This is only
There it is. Got it marked. There it is. Nope.
Oh man.
Oh, you're right. Oh, yeah, those were your tickets after all.
It was a 10 of hearts.
Good try, Debbie.
That's great. Okay. More money next week. We are going to go ahead and move right into our program. Mr. Weiland, would you please come up and announce who our program is today?
I knew I shouldn't have taken that last bite. Today we've got Mr. Charles Reed, who is the CPA and founder and CEO of Get Payroll in Louisville, Kentucky. He's also a U.S. tax court non-attorney practitioner, and that enables him to represent his clients in the U.S. tax court. I gave the wrong information about the title of his presentation that you see on your menu, your table setting. He's really going to be talking about IRS horror stories and how to avoid them. Did I get that right, Mr. Reed?
And it's Texas, not Kentucky.
And one last thing I want to mention about Mr. Reed, he is a United States Marine Corps sergeant and was a combat veteran in the Vietnam War, and I salute you for that, sir. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much for that intro, President Keating. I'm the founder and president of Get Payroll. We started in business in 1991. We provide payroll services to small and medium clients. We provide full service payroll. I am, however, a CPA and have been for over 40 years. I'm a long-term Rotarian. I'm a member of the Downtown Dallas Club and have been for over 25 years. And he's explained some of the other things, obviously a veteran. Now, there are all kinds of horror stories, some funny, some that involve the IRS and other various state, federal, and local agencies that collect taxes. Some are funny, some aren't. The problems are caused by the agency involved, by the taxpayer, and by third parties. Some make you want to cry, some make you want to groan, some make you want to sympathize, and some you just go, duh. Anyway, in a previous presentation, a fellow Rotarian asked me, why is the IRS so difficult to deal with? Now, I'm up at the IRS 5 times a year working on problems and situations with them as a member of IRSAC, the IRS Advisory Council. We're a group of about 30 people from various industries that advise the IRS. They don't always take our advice. If you look at the new W-4 form, you'll realize they did not take our advice. But the IRS has some problems. The 5 major concerns they have: training new hires, headcount, lack of experience, the new Tax Cut and Jobs Act of 2017, and obsolete technology, some of which goes back to the 1960s. And the top 3 reasons behind these issues, wait for it. The primary issue is budget. They say they don't have enough money. I'm just telling you what they tell me, okay? They are having difficulties with budget. And another major concern revolves around the lack of budget. They don't have enough money to spend. Now, so you understand, 70% of all revenue collected by the IRS comes through payroll and payroll taxes, payroll withholding, and payroll and unemployment taxes and employment taxes. So businesses, most of us, do the heavy lifting on collecting and remitting taxes to the government without compensation. Now, I'm going to tell you a number of stories here. There's a point or a moral to all of them. You probably won't need it today, but I promise you over the next couple of years, you, a member of your family, or one of your friends is going to have one of these situations arise. They come up all the time. Now, the real horror story is the U.S. tax system. It is confusing. Former U.S. Secretary of Defense Donald Rumsfeld gets confused, and he sent a letter to the IRS with his 2013 tax return. I'm going to read the quote because it's convoluted, and if you know Donald, you'll understand. The tax code is so complex and the forms are so complicated that I know I cannot have any confidence that I know what is being requested, and therefore I cannot and do not know, as I suspect a great many Americans cannot know, whether or not their tax returns are accurate. I do hope that at some point in my lifetime, the U.S. government will simplify the U.S. tax code so that those citizens who sincerely want to pay what they should are able to do it right and know they have done it right. Good luck. We had a California client. He got audited, and he'd been misclassifying workers for a number of quarters back over several years. Now, you can misclassify workers 2 ways. One, independent contractors versus employees. The second one is subject to overtime or not subject to overtime. The audit ran well into the 5 figures, and that was just the state amounts. Intentionally or unintentionally, misclassifying workers is not looked upon well by the various taxing authorities because they want their taxes. The DOL, Department of Labor, estimates that 70% of businesses misclassify workers. Wow. 70%. We have some infographics. Did you put them on the table?
Infographics are
They're over there. Please help yourself if you have any questions at all, or give me a call. Now, you never know the outcome of an audit. When I was a new CPA, my father got audited. This obviously was a few years ago. And my father was an educated, successful businessman, long-term Rotarian, but he didn't know what to do. He set aside $2,000 to cover the cost of the audit and called me and said, "You're a CPA, I got this problem." So I got into it, and I met with the auditor and the examiner, and I got back to my father, and I called him, and I said, "I've got good news and bad news. What do you want first?" He thought for a second, he said, "Give me the bad news." I said, "It's only $700. And he said, "Well, if that's the bad news, what's the good news?" I said, "It's a refund." He bought me a very expensive dinner that night. The point is, an audit means you've been selected. It doesn't mean you owe. We had a client that had a collection problem. He'd had a problem with the IRS. They'd made a mistake. He was attempting to get it fixed. Before we could get to appeals and get it all solved, he'd gotten his 30-day letter and had to do something. So we filed what's called a collection due process hearing. It's Form 12153. And that puts a stop to all collection efforts upon the part of the IRS, supposedly. And normally, these are run by the better of the agents that are more knowledgeable. However, after we filed that and gotten the response from the IRS, they seized his bank account. I was supposed to stop all collection efforts. So I called up the IRS and I said, "What gives?" And they said, "What do you mean?" I said, "Well, you seized my client's bank account after I filed for a CDP hearing." The agent said, "Well, can you prove you filed?" I said, "Yeah, I can." And he says, "How?" And I said, "I have the letter from your office saying you've received the notice and are setting the hearing for sometime in the next few months." He said, "Oh." Can you fax that to me? I said, "Of course I can." My client had his money back the next day. I've never gotten money from the IRS so fast. Now, of course, when we had the CDP hearing a few months later, we prevailed anyway. Bill was a friend of mine. I worked for him, and he was an engineer, and I was a CPA. After that company went under, he went to work as a heavy equipment broker. He bought and sold pieces of heavy machinery, heavy equipment, machine tools, and so on. And in doing so, lots of times he'd end up with money in his account that had to be paid out at some point. One year in December, he ended up with $100,000. He moved it into his personal money market account. Yeah, you know what's coming. So of course, the next year when the money came due, he moved it back and paid where it needed to be paid. A couple of years later, he got audited. The IRS said, "So that's income, you owe taxes on it." He said, "No, that's not income, it was just holding the money temporarily." They said, "No, it's income, you've got to pay taxes." Well, he argued with him, then he hired an attorney. And the attorney was not a tax attorney. And he wrote a nice long letter to the IRS and charged Bill $3,000 for the letter. And the IRS says, "We don't care." So Bill called me and I said, "Well, let me look into it." I called the examiner and the examiner was a whatever. I can't use the words in polite company. And so I said, I want to talk to your boss. You always have the right to talk to their supervisor. So I talked to the supervisor, and the supervisor said, tough. I said, okay, fine. And we filed an appeals hearing. Goes to the appeals department of the IRS, which supposedly is separate, and the new tax law they passed recently makes it going to be absolutely separate from the IRS. It still reports to the commissioner. How that makes it separate, I don't know, but they didn't ask me. So, got the appeals hearing set a few months later, went in. There were a few items that the appeals officer looked at and said, you know, these aren't documented well as deductions. They're about $5,000. And I said, well, how about the $100,000? He says, oh, that's not income. It never should have been picked up as income. The examiner was just wrong. I said, well, you can have the $5,000 of deductions then. I don't care. So we gave him the $5,000 of undocumented deductions. He gave us the $100,000. We were happy. The point on this one, oh, the attorney did not give him his money back either. The point of this story is that a good CPA is worth their weight. Okay? There's another CPA. Yeah, there's CPAs out here. Yeah. Jack was a friend of mine. He used to play pro football. And after football, he went to work selling commercial real estate in Dallas, Texas in the 80s. Yeah, well, the early 80s in Dallas were not kind to commercial real estate agents. And after 3 years, they let him go and he hadn't sold anything. But they'd been paying him advances against his commissions for those 3 years. And he received a 1099 COD, cancellation of debt. Well, if you don't know, cancellation of debt is taxable income. Yeah, unless you're insolvent. Well, we got an examiner on the case, and I went in to talk to her. Heidi was her name, pleasant CPA, who'd been in practice and then went to work for the IRS because she couldn't cut it in private practice. And that's fine, you know, different strokes for different folks. And I explained to her that Jack was insolvent and it wasn't taxable income. And she said, no, it's taxable income. I said, Heidi, it's not. She said, yes, it is. I said, Heidi, section 108, sub D, sub I, part 2, it's not taxable to the amount he's insolvent. She said, no, it's taxable. I said, okay, fine, we'll just take it to appeals. Well, I went away, and the next day she called me and she said, Mr. Reed, I want to apologize. You're right. It's not taxable to the extent that he's insolvent, but you're going to need to prove up his insolvency. And I said, absolutely. Jack had bought a commercial building during that time, had lost it, along with lots of other people in town, and lost all the money he borrowed from his ex-mother-in-law. So Jack went and talked to his ex-mother-in-law, who, wonder of wonders, was very happy to see him, had missed him, and gave him all the information. We went back to Heidi, and it voided the whole thing. Point of this story is, if you know you're right, stand your ground. You may know more than the IRS does. It happens all the time. Oh, this is cute. This was a Mississippi notice. One of our clients we did payroll for, the state of Mississippi wrote and said, we don't have payments for all these periods. Sent the notice to my client sent it to me. I went, well, that's strange. So we started digging into it, and of course, we had all the canceled checks. We had everything. We went back to the state and said, okay, here's all the stuff that you've cashed. What have you done to it? Well, they misapplied some of it. Some of it was applied to the wrong period, and some of it was just in suspense. And they said, well, we didn't know where to apply it. Other than that, they had no explanation. We didn't know where to apply it. On the check stub, it listed the period, the due date, the account number, and the tax type. Even when it's in black and white, they may not see the writing, even on the check stub. We had a client that came to us, he'd switched payroll late in the year. The previous company I won't name who they are, I'll give you their initials, ADP. Went ahead and filed a W-2 form anyway. They shouldn't have. We filed the correct W-2 because we'd done one more payroll and we filed the correct W-2. Well, 2 years later, he got a notice from the IRS about all this income that he hadn't shown on his tax return. His whole W-2. The wrong one. Well, his previous payroll company, ADP, had a policy. After a year, they didn't fix mistakes. So, we got a 30-day letter. I'm trying to get it to appeals, but we got our 30-day letter. So what we did is we filed a petition with U.S. Tax Court. Being a U.S. Tax Court practitioner, I'm allowed to represent clients in tax court even though I'm not an attorney. There's about 200 of us in the country. The nice thing about tax court, and the 30-day letter is the key to tax court. When you get that 30-day letter, you can go to tax court. Until you get it, you can't. So with that 30-day letter, we filed a petition with tax court. Now, the IRS does not like to go to court. 95% of all cases filed with the tax court are settled before court. They don't want to go to court. They don't want precedents. Because if they've got something that they prosecute and it's wrong, they don't want it corrected in tax court because then it throws every case like that down the tubes. So we filed in tax court and it immediately is sent to docket and appeals. Well, about 6 weeks later, we got a call from the district council who said that, never mind, everything's fine, we're just going to ignore it, just don't worry about it, we'll take it off the books. If you outsource, know the strengths and responsibilities of the company you outsource to. Very important. Had an optometrist. We'd settled a disagreement with the IRS for them, and we got a notice of case resolution. Big bold letters. No tax due. Wow. We're set, right? The Bureau of Fiscal Service, which is a part of the federal government that handles payments, started levying his Medicare reimbursements for his Medicare clients for taxes. Well, I called the Bureau of Fiscal Service and said, what's this for? And they explained it was for this period that we had a notice of case resolution, no tax due on. I said, no taxes are due. And they said, no, taxes are due. I said, okay, let me check into this. Called the IRS. IRS looked at it and said, yeah, no taxes are due. I called the Bureau of Fiscal Service back and said, hey, IRS says no taxes are due. They said, we don't care. It says taxes are due. We're going to keep collecting them. Well, I called the Taxpayer Advocate's Office, and that's what they're there for. They got into it with everybody, and it took about 6 months, but my client got all his money back, and the Bureau of Fiscal Service decided he didn't owe any taxes. And the moral of this one is, no case is ever over till it's over, but you have to know what to do. We still have a few minutes. Okay. You know the IRS pays people who inform on taxpayers who don't pay money. If you haven't paid money in, people can turn you in. It's whistleblowers, okay? Now, can anybody guess what's the most common source of whistleblower tips for the IRS?
Ex-spouse.
Right on the first one, ex-spouses.
I may have one. I don't know.
Are you speaking from experience? Okay, and the second most common is ex-employees. Okay, I tell my clients, you know, they want to do things, they want to skim the register or whatever. I said, don't tell them. If the IRS asks me, I'm not going to lie for you. Okay? They ask me, I'm going to tell them everything. Believe me. And I said, so don't tell me, don't tell your employees, and for heaven's sakes, don't tell your spouse. And clients that were well-known restaurateurs in Dallas. And one of their bookkeeper employees decided that they had done something wrong and made a complaint with the IRS to try and get a whistleblower reward. Now, these people have been clients of mine for 25 years. I knew them well. And they had to hire an attorney. The attorney charged them $100,000 over the course of a couple of years. We produced 10 years of financial records, accounting records in detail for the IRS. They went through great aggravation, great stress, a lot of personal turmoil over the whole thing. And at the end of 2 years, the IRS said, nah, never mind, and walked away. Because there was nothing there. It was a spurious complaint by a dissatisfied employee that had no basis in fact. But it cost my clients time, energy, effort, and money. The IRS, who had originally agreed to pay me for the copies of the financial statements and the accounting records, stiffed me and said, no, you're the company accountant. We're not going to pay you. I didn't charge my client. I couldn't at that point. And the point of this one is, sometimes you may do everything right, and it's still not enough. Cute story, round and round. Female taxpayer goes into the IRS. She has a problem she has to settle, and she takes a return with her to process. She's a businesswoman. She takes a return to be sent in automatically, electronically. So she hands it to the agent who's going to do that, and he looks at it and he says, "Madam, there's some problems with this. Let's fix it before we submit it." So they sit down and they fix the problems. And he hands it off to the guy who's going to do the actual filing. He looks at it and says, "Oh, there's still some mistakes here. Let's fix them." She says, "Yeah." Now she's been there for now 3 hours getting all this fixed and submitted. 6 weeks later, she gets a letter from the IRS. It says, "Madam, we have found some mistakes on your tax return and have fixed them." Don't feel discouraged if taxes confuse you. Sometimes they confuse the IRS. Did you hear the one about the 2 CID agents that walked into the office? Happened to me. 2 criminal investigation agents walked into my office one day, presented their badges to my receptionist. My receptionist called me. I went up and they showed me their badges. I took them into the copy room, got copies of their identification, put them in the conference room, and went to my office and called my attorney. Got him on the speakerphone, and he said, "What do you guys need?" And they said, "Well," and they explained the problem. One of my clients had filed a fraudulent lien release with the SBA to get a small business loan. Now, one of the CID agents was IRS because his girlfriend, my client, his girlfriend was an IRS agent. And the other one was an SBA criminal investigation agent. I had no idea the SBA had a CID division. Not only had he forged my name to documents, okay, and claimed that I was his CFO, and so on and so forth, I am sure that the dumbfounded look on my face proved my innocence, because I was just flabbergasted. Now, I never heard from them again after that day. They said they'd call me if they needed further information. They never called, and it was fine by me. My client spent 2 years in the federal pen over the whole situation. The takeaway is if they have a badge, they're law enforcement agents. Okay? They carry a gun. They can arrest you. Don't talk to them. Don't call me. Call your attorney. And you may want to call a criminal attorney. Okay. Got just a minute here. Okay. Telltale signs of an IRS scam. The IRS will never call to demand immediate payment by a specific method such as a prepaid debit card, gift card, or wire. The IRS will never threaten to bring in the local police and arrest you. Just the other day, I was talking to a Louisville officer. They called him and told him that. And he said, oh, who are you going to send? Because I know them all. Or am I supposed to arrest myself? Okay? They will never demand to be paid without giving you the opportunity to question the debt. They will never ask for credit or debit card numbers over the phone. And I promise you, the IRS will never call you about an unexpected refund. Okay, I want to thank you very much. I've enjoyed the presentation. I hope you have. Questions?
Does the IRS have no liability for their mistakes? Can you sue the IRS?
Nope, they're part of the government. They have sovereign immunity.
Government anarchy.
You can't sue them. You can file suit. They'll just throw it out. Your attorney will take the check. Sir,
What are the odds on an audit?
for a individual making less than $100,000 a year, about 1 in 200. For a business that's a pass-through, such as an S-corp, about 1 in 100. For a corporation like JCPenney's, 1 in 1. Sir.
I got audited by the IRS one time, and I had made a simple mistake on my tax return, and he took time to show me where I had made my mistake, and he showed me that I owed some money. I said, "How much time do I have to pay, sir?" He looked at his watch. He said, "How much time do you need?"
Now. They always want it now, but if you ask for 30 days, they'll give it to you. Oh, well, yeah, of course. Now, however, and this is another story, simple mistakes, they can't penalize you for. They will, but by law, they can't. You just have to object. Sir.
What's your opinion on the bad points in the last tax bill?
Which last tax bill? The one in July or the one previous to that?
Previous.
Well, the previous one? I love it. It guarantees my income.
I understand that.
Anybody else? Thank you very much. If you have stories you want to pass on, please feel free to send them to me. If you want attribution, say so. If you don't, that's okay too. Thank you very much, President King.
Thank you so much for being here. And I understand a little bit about dealing with those governmental entities because I do Medicare, so I get it. Okay, just a couple of very quick things. The first thing I was just informed about, and I would like to pass this information on, Bob Arrington is not here today because his mother passed away this morning. So let's please keep he and his father in our prayers today as we go forward. I would like for all of the applications that are out, I know we gave applications I think to everybody. Keith, would you please stand real quick? If you have an application that was given to you today and you would like to turn that in today to be a member of this Rotary Club, please see Keith after the meeting. Board members, could you please stay for 1 minute? I'd like to do the vote on the application that we have right now currently and any we get today. So board members, please stay for a couple of seconds afterwards. And don't forget those auction items and the Chili Fest tickets. And that is all for Rotary today.
This video has been brought to you by Juice 34. Juice is your community-owned provider for electric, internet, cable TV, and true local programming.